This is AV SuperFriends Perspectives, a collection of interviews, discussions, and presentations from conferences, trade shows, and events that just don't fit either of the other two shows. Some are long, some are short, but they'll all have valuable insights, useful information, or just good conversation with thought leaders and subject matter experts. And now, the AV SuperFriends. So we are here at Northwest Met 2025. Make sure I get the date,
That is
the
the
year correct. I sometimes screw that up.
The year of our Lord.
In beautiful downtown Boise, Idaho.
Mm-hmm. You said it correctly, too.
Boise.
I did, with the S, not the Z.
No
I know
Z.
that.
Yes.
Boise, not Boise. That's the one tip I know about Boise. And we are joined by the illustrious Mr. Joe Way
Hi.
to discuss an announcement that was made on Monday. When was it? Was it last week?
It released on Monday.
Monday.
Yes.
April 28th.
And I remember you commented. You said, "I'm very excited about this partnership."
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, Marc, do you have it up?
I have it up. UCLA and PlaceOS team up to create Smart Campus.
That is correct.
What the hell does that mean, Joe?
Well, I don't know if anyone is familiar with PlaceOS or if you'd heard about it before or anything along
I
those
Googled
lines.
them afterwards because I had not.
It's pretty freaking awesome, isn't it?
Maybe.
Is this like there's three of you here, so by the end we have to vote?
I'll
whether
be on your
it's
team
awesome?
because it aligns with my philosophy first. I'm
Marc
the
is
crazy
all in
one.
on
I'm
the
all cloud
AI,
all the time.
AI data
Full
collection,
stack, let's
building
go.
management.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's all on board.
Awesome. Well, as people know, I have been preaching for years about moving things to a platform, a cloud. Our classrooms are not just about the technology inside. They have multi-layers from obviously the teaching and learning. That's the obvious thing. But
Right.
really, it's just one part of the total student experience, right? And I've been preaching that for years. But to be honest, at my former institution, my scope of work was general use classrooms, right? So there's also only so much you can move forward with that. So as I moved to UCLA, now my scope is enterprise, right? And so now, because of that, I can now, I should look outside of just that four walls and a projector experience to how can we actually unify the entire student experience no matter what they do and who they are. And since security falls under me, signage and comms, all of these other areas, the menus, things, everything in the dining and residence halls to our experience. So because
Do you even have stuff just like access control and all that?
Access control.
So if it has
wow.
a connection that can provide data, it's Joe's problem.
I like to say, if it, for lack of better terms, if it plugs into a wall, it probably falls under me.
Right.
It's
Right.
probably a good way of saying it. Right?
Water fountains?
Or at least under one of my teams.
If there's smart water fountains, then probably yes.
Well, yeah, but we can. The system will be able to interact with our smart.
Okay.
There you go.
Drinking fountains. But yeah, so in that sense, when I went to go put our RFP out for what we're going to do to bring our enterprise solution up, because as I've mentioned, UCLA, as we did our audit of our spaces, we found some that had not been upgraded since 1994. That's the oldest one we found. The average is 2006. Almost 20 years old is the average time life of one of the spaces.
Wow.
Okay, that puts it into perspective. But I saw that as an opportunity. Right.
That's like green pasture. That's just like,
Yes.
come fix me.
And that's why, a lot of us, and even I take that, our network, the very first internet connection ever made was between UCLA and Harvard, right? Do you know they're still using almost the exact same core that did that?
I'm going to say, is that session still working? Is it still connected and they're still going?
They're using it to play chess bit by bit, and they're still responding.
The room that they did it from is actually a museum. If you walk by, they took the door out and they put a glass thing. It's pretty cool. The equipment's there. But anyway, that being said,
It's like looking at Edison's lab, and there's some guy in there.
Somebody has to go and unplug it every now and then.
Yeah,
Plug
just
it back
reset
in.
that.
So at some point, I'm going to end up answering your question. So I'm getting there.
Okay.
And so anyway, as I started taking this and looked at everything that we want to do, and we want to start moving into integrating our learning tools. We want to integrate all these things, and everyone knows I'm big on accessibility and sustainability. They're huge issues to me. But how can we now, leverage with, we're a school. It turns out we need to increase enrollment, like a lot.
Everybody
schools,
does.
right? Everyone
Yeah.
does. But it turns out real estate in Beverly Hills is kind of expensive.
Seems like it.
So we have to start being creative of how can I increase enrollment without increasing seats, right?
You stack them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Vertical seats.
Multi-layers. And have you seen those things like where the planes, where they have
Yes.
talked
Yes,
about? Okay,
that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
All right, so anyway, that's why. So when we said, okay, let's look at how we can build a platform, and that's when we went to RFP. PlaceOS kind of came out of nowhere and responded to this RFP based on everything that I put, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I will say they won it by far. To the front desk.
Somebody.
To the front desk. Someone's in trouble.
Chris, they're talking to you, buddy.
It's like a TSA.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Announcement. So anyway, so this was our opportunity to say, hey, how can we really look at the campus holistically, and how can I leverage, for example, because we can look at occupancy not by just a Crestron Sen.io device, but
Right.
I can use the smart camera. I can use our I can connect our Wi-Fi connections, and I can start tracking our students and our usage, so that maybe at 4:00 we can now have our HVAC shut off one wing of a building, or we can have our registrar use that information to better match student use with classroom availability, right? And so it's things I've always wanted to do, and I'm not going to lie, I've been preaching it, but I didn't necessarily know if it was
I
really
think
possible.
everybody wants to get to that point where you're transcending the four walls of the classroom, right? We're going beyond that, and let's be honest, the student learning experience does not stop at those four walls. It's the totality of everything that happens on campus. And so what is that common thread that holds together? That network, the architecture of all that. And so bringing all of that data in to create that holistic vision, that's why I think the interplay between the subsystems, whether it be teaching and learning, the signage, the HVAC, all of that makes up the totality of that student experience. And so I'd be really, really curious to see what the data back end of that, because that's got to be like wildly impressive on that, and kind of how that is kind of feeding that and being able to kind of learn along the way. So like, I thought it was really cool take on what that can be. I was in the ability to be bold enough to take those steps, to say, we're going to do this. And I like the term, the platform, because I think that's kind of really what this comes down to. It's no longer just what are the boxes in the space doing? It's really the holistic platform which we're going to bolt these services on and tell that story.
Right. Yeah. And that was really the thought is, and when we did our RFP, and I'll come back on in the future and talk about it when it's finally concluded.
When does that close, by the way?
We are in the implementation vendor phase, so I did it backwards.
Ooh, okay.
I got the solutions first, and then going to the implementation vendor, aka integrator. And that's just for the labor part, right, and stuff like that, and the reselling, because it turns out can't yet buy direct on everything. But anyway, we won't go down that way, or we'll have a whole other show. But yeah, so in about 4 weeks, that will be fully complete, and we'll have it all. But I have no idea where I was going with that. But anyway,
derailed you. Yeah,
it's all right.
It's very all-encompassing, and so I think I think the intriguing piece for me, I want to see where this goes. From the AV side of it, right, and kind of understand as that evolves and becomes more, because moving to that cloud-first philosophy, I think changes the way we even look at what things we can use as tools, right? This changes like our interoperability. So I'm very curious to see how it rolls out and how it changes your vision of what can be in a classroom or outside of a classroom, because it's a much different on-ramp. Like, you're no longer confined anymore. It opens up everything.
Yeah. Now I remembered, because you took me right back there, so thank you for that. This is the whole thing. I'm going to simplify it by calling this, and when it's a platform, it's an aggregating platform, and it's much more than that, so I don't want to say it. But the fact is it's a tie-in to every system we have, whether it be the Linnell system, or whether it be our Genetech security, or Crestron Fusion, or in very legacy rooms that might still have an old GVE or something along those lines, or the control, and actually be direct device to cloud, right? And be able, and that's it's funny. Now we can take all of that, and they can all talk to one another, and basically then one another, right? If something happens, then the other, and I start looking at things like, if you go on PlaceOS's website, one of the things that Jonathan talks about is, we know the data, we know where people are. Can we unlock rooms on their way? As soon as a faculty member connects to the AP in that room, now it knows that they're there. They're already authenticated because they're within our network. Can that room already start up with the preferences they already have because it remembered them that way, right? And these are things we actually already know. And it's not actually rocket science in doing this. It's just taking 95 different data areas and
You're
going,
really cleaning it up, providing that level. It's the automation, right? It's like, if we know somebody's going to come into a space to do these things, we know who they are, why can't the space just take the initiative to do that? Why ask them and carry that cognitive load to have to do all this song and dance? Just automate that, right? And so I'm really curious. It sounds like to me you're looking at kind of agency, right? What level does our network and our technology give us the ability to have agency to unlock and automate? And so in that story along the way, it aligns really well with the new AI vision that you're seeing rolling across the world at this point. And so I'm really curious, fascinated to kind of see how this rolls out, and super stoked to kind of play along at home and see how this rolls and see what that data actually brings to the university, because I think it's potentially huge.
Yeah, and another key part of it, and in that press release you can see, is we are doing this in kind of, I'm going to call it 2 phases. And it's 10 rooms.
Is it phase 1 and then phase 2?
Yeah, there you go.
Clever.
That is how we,
Where
I
did that name
guess
come
I
from?
should have done blue and gold, phase blue and phase gold.
I
Anyway,
thought you were going to say phase 1 and phase B.
Yeah.
Well, we started with phase 2.
That
We're
would've
going to go
been
back
great.
and redo phase 1. Yeah.
That would have been great. No, so we're doing
Phase-
it as 10-room pilot. Wait, how many different phases? You know, all right.
However many it takes, we're going to get there. Yeah.
But we are doing it as 10 rooms that we're redoing, gut and doing all that stuff this summer. And we're using the fall quarter to collect data, work with our faculty, our teaching and learning center, and then Adeline, who works for me, who is our training coordinator, so she'll work with everybody to help them also. Now, remember, rooms that we're doing, we're also taking the crap rooms. So we're taking the ones that were the 30 years, and now we're giving them the top tools there are. And
Yeah,
this is from
well,
LMS,
it makes sense.
everything.
Start with the oldest rooms because you don't have to worry about trying to salvage anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those are endless.
Yeah, those are still good rooms for
But now
Justin.
we're tracking that data to now.
What are you doing with the old stuff out of those really old rooms?
Justin's going to want that.
Yeah, he might use it. Especially if they're speakers.
Can you send that to Western Kentucky?
We are going to Dante speakers, so the speakers will come
nice.
out.
Okay.
So, but that again, because I need everything on the network to be able to control the monitor, right? So that's
I had a question about that.
Yes.
Invariably, you're going to run into some devices that just can't be on the network, and you need some sort of collector, aggregator device, something. So has that been part of this process for whatever those devices are that just they're out there that just can't be?
Well, hopefully, as we scale this out, as I say, we're going from 10 to 1,000. Right. We're going to use the data, go into what you said, figure out what it really looks like before we then go, this is what we're doing everywhere, right? Because there's going to be a learning curve, right? There's going to be things, there's going to be those blocks, right? Like, right now, the pilot isn't going to have that problem because I'm vanilla boxing everywhere.
Fair enough, yeah.
And I'm going to then say, here. But there's no doubt there's going to be some historical building that I can't throw a screw in, and I'm going to still have to control X, Y, Z.
Yep.
So I don't know what that will look like yet. But as we go through the process, hopefully that informs.
Right. Those problems are the process. Right?
Yeah.
That's the piece. Like that's figuring that out, unlocking, and keeping that riddle kind of moving forward. I think it's amazing. Like, in kind of where it is right now, what do you think is kind of your biggest hurdle so far along the way? Outside of RFPs, or what are you projecting you think is going to be one big hurdle you're going to have to kind of triangulate and figure out?
That's a great question. I've been asked it a few times, and I don't know how to answer it because it's weird that I actually don't foresee a hurdle. Because everything that we're doing, and like same thing, the network. Well, we're doing a huge network unification, and like I'm just one of 15 initiatives that are happening at the same time.
Sure.
So we're all of my peers, at the executive IT level, we're all working on our own things and we're collaborating together. Like our ACO of infrastructure is going, Joe, what do you need to make this happen? And he's designing the network based on my needs and everyone else. So if I take those things where most people would say, well, network would be an issue. For me, it won't. And here's why I'm going to answer that. I've also almost been UCLA for almost 2 years now, and we are just pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of it was words we've been using for the last couple of years is move slow to move fast, right? We spent a lot of time in getting all the procurement together, making sure the money is there, making sure executive buy-in is there. I have a working group with all the executives of the university. So all of this came together so that now that we're a go, those hurdles aren't there, if that makes sense. So it was a lot of 2 years of something that everyone thought, well, you're not doing it, what did they even hire you for? But not in that way, but you get what I'm saying. And it was recruiting the right people and having just, one of the best, I will say the best organization that's out there, and going and finding all the pieces. And one of the keys, and I think this is it, is I didn't hire for what we're doing, I'm hiring for what we're gonna do.
That makes sense.
You built for the future. So if you said you've been asked that question a number of times. there is an answer to that question, and that you can give to people so that they don't feel bad that you don't have an answer. The answer is time. Time is going to be your biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys are pushing up against the Olympics and other things going on there, and so there's a big push to to your point, okay, it's been 2 years. We have a plan. We've got everything structured. We're going to go. Here's the RFP. It's out. But then it's going to be like that time of getting stuff done, and that will be your biggest hurdle, just that logistics of time will keep going regardlars of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and going through the phase 1 or A, whatever you want to do it, and then knowing as soon as that phase alpha sounds
phase
better.
alpha and phase 2.
And then knowing you've got that other 990 rooms to do as soon as that's approved and learned from, and I think that's going to be the challenge, is not to, because the time aspect to that, you're going to get crunched and you're going to want to progress as quick as possible, but you want to really digest the learning from that first one to make sure you're stepping forward.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. And also with the Olympics, I actually think one of the things that's going to help make this a success is the Olympics, because now there is a drop-dead day. It turns out they're not going to move they're not going to move the Olympics for me, I found out. I did ask if that was a possibility.
You can call them and say, hey, IOC, can you push this back about 3 weeks?
Just 3 weeks. That's all I'm asking.
So therefore, we have to get it done. There's where a lot of people, when I first was talking about it, it's like, oh, is this like when we went through an initial process of getting this vendor, it was like, oh, is this a 5-year, 10-year? Like, no, we need this done by 2027, because that's what the Olympic writer says. And then they're going to come in and then we can fix it. We got to be at 90%, 95% by 2027.
It needs to look good for photo ops.
And it's like, so I think that says, okay, yes, it'll happen. So it's fast, and there's a lot there. And when that summer comes, these next 2 years to go now implement it, it will be a lot. But that's so part of, I'll give a little bit, one of the questions on the RFP that I gave to the implementation vendor was, technically they're bidding on this pilot scope, right?
Sure.
But the next part is, give us the roadmap of how you would take this from 10 to 1,000.
Right.
If you are the chosen one, this isn't just about this, show me how you're going to do that. And you got 24 months to do it in.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's similar to the process I'm going through right now, which is just to do 115. So it's about 10% of your spaces. But I have 2 years as well, and it's time that is the killer. Which is interesting, because in this industry we're always talking about money and funding and that sort of thing. When that disappears, when that's not a problem, you have this even worse problem of time. So,
So, Joe, question for you.
Yes.
Obviously, the scope and scale of something as big of this undertaking, you're having to go out and engage and liaise with many different groups, right? And I can only imagine if I was going to go to my facilities groups and tell them, hey, all the lighting systems and all these other things and your heat, HVAC and all that, we're going to get all that data, how much pushback there was. Was there any group you had to kind of really apply leverage and dig into because they didn't see the vision, or where did you have to provide the most galvanization seasoning?
Food services.
I'm going to also say I got zero pushback.
Wow, okay.
And
is that because you're paying for it?
No, let me tell you. I'm going to actually give you the reason. My boss, greatest boss there is, hands down, ironically, she was my boss at USC. What a coincidence.
Okay. Interesting, all right.
But anyway, when she came over to UCLA to become CIO, she spent 2 years getting all of this in place and getting all 15 initiatives in place before she pulled the trigger to hire her leadership team, me and my peers.
Gotcha, okay.
So
this is now we're 4 years out.
This is like multi-years,
Wow.
the setting and building the infrastructure to kind of get this in place.
And so and then go back to what I said about how old our rooms are. If I take the classroom situation. Well, that's true for everything. Our LMS was a home-built, Moodle thing that right. And then, now we're on campus. That's part of moving that up, right?
Digital transformation.
Exactly. And so the whole thing is, it was such. It was a shit show around. All right, that's what it was, right?
That's probably more common than people would want to believe.
Yeah.
That's actually the narrative.
When you get to a point where you're the number one public institution in the country, but yet everything's is at this status, right? And you have students complaining, and everyone knows it. There's also a point when someone comes in like Lucy, and she's a leader like that, and goes, "I've done this. I did it at USC. This is what we're gonna do. Here's how we do it." And all of a sudden, you get people. A lot of the campus was just waiting for someone to come in and champion it,
right?
And to come in and go, "I need you, and I need this buy-in." And so she spent that time. Like my project, we have a working group, right, that actually does this. It is made up of myself, the Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning, the Vice Chancellor for Facilities, the Vice Chancellor for Administration, and our Deputy Registrar. We're the 5 of us that are championing my thing. And so when you say, what pushback, I got none because everybody's involved in this. And it's a win-win for everybody.
But that took the 2 years prior to you arriving.
Correct.
And then you've got 2 years to kind of get all the logistics in order, because everyone's already at the table on the same page, not to mix metaphors,
right?
And they're ready to execute. Okay, gotcha.
I think that shows the importance that many of these kind of initiatives we want to do. It's not about that stuff all the time, right? And we talk about it all the time on our show. It's the relationships and building it. It sounds like even your leadership knew and had the foresight to say, hey, this is going to be a radical change. It could potentially be very disruptive. Setting the stage, putting that piece in, and acknowledging that there's going to be some work done prior to anything even happening. And so for those that are out there trying to do anything, even if it's something simple and small, if it does, you don't just get that yes right away. Did you put in the homework and the hours needed to actually change that and write that and move that boat in the right direction? Because it's not just buy the thing. Yeah. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and I think it's good and like refreshing to hear that your leadership took that time and really architected a good vision to kind of be able to roll this out.
And that was kind of, if I say what was been my, we're really just launching, but I could also say there's been a chapter closed, not, we wrapped a bow and closed a chapter to mix metaphors, right?
Wait, which page was that chapter on?
And the one learning lesson to hear, now that we're pulling the trigger to give another metaphor to go forward, is the importance of governance. If anyone could learn any one thing, it's governance.
Right.
And to be able to pull those, all your stakeholders together, we have governance documents. We know who's going to run it, who's got to say, who's driving it, where the initiative, like all of that. And I probably didn't recognize the importance of that before until now. And it's amazing that all that time, and I know it sucks because, as AV, especially when you have places of support, we're reactionary, right? Things go wrong. We want to fix, we want to do. It was honestly very hard for me to slow down that much.
Yeah.
And then, but now I totally understand it. There's total alignment up and down the university on this. And it's all laid out to, okay, if something happens, where does it fall? Right. And so I've got my governance area. My peers have their governance area. We pull that out. And so I just think that there's so much to that. That I think that's kind of that one learning piece.
And that's the service, right? We want it to be clean and work the way that it needs to work without causing disruption because it didn't work. And it is. And that's the truth we bring here now, right? Is that where the AV and technology meets like the political pieces and like the legal pieces. So much of what we're doing and the change is so radical that it's way too much to do so fast. And I often say that higher ed can often move at tectonic speed, not glacial, tectonic. It's nothing. There's a lot of work going, and all of a sudden the earthquake happens, and boom, it all moves forward, right? And so it doesn't just move slow. It doesn't seem like it's moving at all, but it is, right? And then all of a sudden it bursts. And so I think seeing how this shakes out and kind of how the aftershocks of this decision that you made and where this goes, I think is going to be fascinating to watch, and I look forward to kind of keep an eye on this, and we'll bring it back because I want to hear some of the juicy details behind the scenes on kind of where this went and what things you learned and what would you do different, because I think you're going to learn a lot along the way.
And like I said, is on that, things you learn, and while this sounds cool, and it is cool, like I'm not going to combat, I also told my team 2 things. If we get through this pilot and we get all that, and you tell us we did it, we nailed it 100%, I'm going to say there's only 2 things are true. Either you're lying to me, or we didn't push it far enough. Right. And so this is about data collection. It's about failing fast. Right. And so
not perfection, progress. Move, do some things, learn some things, and fail fast and make some decisions.
So Joe, on the pilot to the second phase, the pilot to the execution sort of thing.
Beta phase.
From phase
beta.
1 to phase beta.
Or omega.
Ooh.
You go all the way to the end.
That'd be the last one, though.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's no more phases?
No replacement cycle after that.
Don't name it that way.
That's when we get into gold and blue. We're just going to move forward.
From phase Primero to phase Unicorn. Is there time in between there to look at some of that numbers and see if we need to make adjustments? Because, like you said, a pilot of 10 rooms is not much.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that all the time. But if the idea is we're picking some of our worst spaces, we're picking some of the most challenging spaces, and we're going to look at all these problems that we don't know what they are yet, but this is to identify them. This is to like shake those loose. How much time do you have between there and when you're going to start the next round? Because you're going to have to make some adjustments and pivots.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think the 10 rooms is also very specific, too. It wasn't just like a lot of times, we're going to do this building. It was actually 2 separate parts of campus. So we have like physics and astronomy, so scientists, and a humanities area, 2 different use cases. A seminar room, a small classroom, a large lecture hall, and auditorium. So we have all different types.
Any active learning spaces?
Well, they're going to turn into active, but we have none because 1994, 2006.
They're all active learning, Larry.
This is prehistoric classrooms.
So and one of our
just put a bunch of TVs up. It's active learning now.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what it is, right? 5 TVs in the room is not active learning, but once you put the 6th in, then it's active learning. But the whole idea is every faculty member should choose their pedagogical style in any space that they're in.
Sure.
Right, and so we're kind of taking that. So yes, we have to collect that data, and that's by working with the faculty who use the space. We're going to do priority registration for faculty who, yes, I want to try this, but I only have a 30-person class. Okay, they're going to use this one. I teach a large lecture, but I want to use different types of tools and work in eye clickers and things like that. And great, then we're going to put you in here. And so we're definitely going to need time to look at that data. Obviously, from when we finish, it's never finished, but I'll call it the initial 10-week phase of the pilot in action. Well, we're going to have to order quickly to do anything in summer of 26. So the answer is yes. Hopefully we'll start seeing patterns and data form and tell us kind of what things are happening as it's going on. But we might find, because we're doing this in different types of spaces and at such a dramatic shift and bringing in all these tools, we might say, you know what, we nailed it in this size of room, but this one we got wrong, and in both use cases. But in this use case, we nailed it here and here. So now when we go and form the 1,000, now we go, okay, in the sciences, this worked, this is what they like, this here. When we get to the humanities, well, this style of flexible furniture worked better at XYZ, right? So hopefully it helps us form conclusions. And that's just it. It's just a data collection is really what it is. Yeah. It is not an end, and that's why the pilot isn't, we're going to do this building. Like I said, it's really, let's pick spaces and do them intentionally to then get the right data to help inform that decision. And then, then take it to academic senate and take it to this. And, we're going to have to socialize those findings with a deadline of, by the way, we're socializing it, but we're only socializing it until March 1st because on March 30th, I need orders in.
We're making moves. Right.
What about when you go, because I know that it's one of those adages of when you do design by committee like that, and I understand you want to get campus input and you want to get different stakeholders involved at different levels. But at a certain point, like by making everybody happy, now nobody's happy because you've had to make compromises across the board. As part of this process, like with the larger, maybe outside the pilot, but with a larger deployment, is there going to be like, okay, yes, we got this feedback and they all said they want this sort of environment to teach in? Well, that's wrong, so we're just going to go do this anyway.
Okay, that's where I come back to governance. In my committees, I have representation from all of campus. And when they come into it, they also understand it, but they also understand the final decision is mine. And they all agree to that they're going to be listened to, we're going to work with them. And I'm not going to if they need a specific tool for their discipline, I'm not going to be like, no. I'll figure out, again, let's go all the way back to platform. I'm building something that everything can work in, right? So that when I have specific use cases, when I get to the film department, they're going to definitely have a specific use case.
No, that standard projector's fine. Deal with it.
So I need to be able to build upon it, still have my single pane of glass, and I can, control all that stuff and give those tools and be able to support it. But I'm not going to, there's certain non-negotiables that I'm going to keep and I'm going to run.
I was just curious about that because it's one of those things that, like, having had to pick up the literal pieces of several capital projects where there's only 20, 30, 40 rooms sort of thing, or spaces, but mix of lab spaces, informal huddle spaces, lobby, video walls, giant active learning spaces, where it was clearly done by committee, and they wanted to make everybody happy, and they made so many just awful operational compromises. It's good to hear you phrase it that way because it means, like, they were looking too closely at what every single person said they wanted, down to the point of like the type of equipment they wanted in a space. I'm like, they shouldn't care.
Right.
We should be looking at how they want to teach, what they're teaching, what their lab needs.
Capabilities and what it can
Right, and then
possibly do.
let me figure out what's the best solution for it. But now we have these weirdo unicorn things that are like unsustainable, unsupportable, unscalable, and are not going to go anywhere, and we have them like turned off and all. So it's annoying. So I'm glad to hear you're aware of that, so you'll get their input, you'll get feedback for what you're doing, but then and let us determine a solution to move forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a piece I want to tease out here as we're going to go a little bit overtime on it, whatever.
A little bit. Aren't we way over time?
Never.
How much time did we say? Did you?
I said like 15 to 20.
Oh, I thought he
can
said an
control
hour and
this.
15
We're doing
minutes.
an hour and 25 minutes short segment with Joe today. But there's
Do I almost get my own episode out of this?
Yeah, it'll be like a
seemingly.
mini-series.
Yeah, so there's a piece I wanted to tease out.
And like Ryan, I'll chop it up into 7 parts and release it over
We'll
7
release this
weeks.
for next year. 5 minutes of this every week.
I know, isn't that
We love
cheating?
you, Ryan. Sorry
Isn't
about
that cheating?
It is cheating, and I give him crap about it all the time.
So going back to
But it's okay because my voice gets in front of every one of them.
Wow, we're going.
Oh, we got another. We had
One
an
announcement. Chris, this is you. Get up there.
Oh, if you're presenting, there's a gift.
I assume the gift is a bill.
Yeah, you pay this bill, and you're fine. So
You use this room for 1 hour. You owe us
somebody
$78.
owes us money. We kicked this off. You started off with a little bit of a phrase, say, increasing enrollment. And where I'm going with this is some universities may be taking the opposite play, right? And I want to see where this project aligns with research. Because you hear a lot about research, and research as the new revenue stream and lifeblood for institutions. I can't help but think the data you have coming out of this process will be extremely valuable as an actual revenue stream about this is what we learned about higher ed institutions of this scale and magnitude, and where does that put you, like, to take that data, provide research around that can change campuses around the world. Like, is there thought process in the research mission? Is that going on as part of this as well?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
we're
it wasn't, but it is now.
It is
the
now.
second.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
It's funny to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, we are an elite R1 institution, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's, so obviously research is everything. It's half our campus. It's half our revenue, right? If not more.
Right.
So obviously that absolutely, has something to say with it. And of course, again, we're not going to dictate research, but there was someone that actually brought it to me and go, is what I'm doing, it's a grantable research project in itself,
Yes.
right?
It can be, right? And that's,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think what you're going to learn is going to be extremely valuable. And you're going to learn, like, wow, we had assumptions that it should be this way, that way, X, Y, or Z, and we learned by way of the data we were completely wrong.
Yep.
And how does that change? How does it turn our heads on it? It's like, so I think things like that and thinking differently to kind of bring to the table different types of opportunities for institutions, I think people will be watching because it's a dwindling pool of students right now. And so what other things are we going to do to kind of bolster that bottom line and kind of move forward? And I think it's these types of initiatives that are bold enough to kind of go in that direction.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree.
I'm really interested because we've often made the point that the AV industry isn't mature from a security standpoint. And you're basically pushing forward and saying, I'm going to do this with whatever manufacturers I find that play nice and will work. And from a person on the outside, I'm interested to find out what you find out so I can start using those same products.
Well, you know what? And I think this, again, especially when you're doing something at scale like this, I can dictate security, And by the way, one of our peers, Drake, our CISO, he's amazing, and we work together, and our governance, who falls under him, Ernesto, he's my peer too, we work together. We have TPRM, third-party, management, 3PR, whatever. It's security stuff, whatever.
Something security.
Yes. And so we are going to make everybody go through it. It's it's part of being chosen as a solution that you actually have to pass it. We are a state school, right? So we actually have extra layers of security and privacy that are important. So while I'm doing all this stuff, we are checking all those boxes and making sure that anybody comes in, passes that, and that is a requirement of finalization of the contract.
Sure.
And Drake, our CISO, he's great. I mean, again, it's building those alliances ahead of time. I'm not afraid of security. In fact, I said it here, Drake. Ernesto, go talk to these people, you know, and they'll lay
It should
this
be
back
like
down. Here's what we want.
It has to
SOP at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it
But
needs
you
to
would
be
think,
baked
but
in.
I think you're going to run into, depending on how some of these RFPs are structured, because having gone through a lot of RFPs in the last, we do one every 30 days, every 90 days, every 3 months. You'll get responses back that where they're like, oh yeah, we won't going to do that, but we're going to do this instead, and it's just like it's not kosher. I mean, to Larry's point about security kind of being an afterthought in AV, like, well, password 123. What do you need? You know, who cares? Oh, you need a special character. It's password 123 exclamation point. Yeah. So and that's the level, because like, well, who cares? You know, we're just get the picture up there, get a signal up, send the audio over there, and it's
a different mindset.
Yeah, it very much is to get it done. It comes. I think a lot of it comes from that like event, like production sort of thing. The show starts in an hour. I'm going to get this working, so I'm going to skip all these steps. But I think you're going to run into some of the things that otherwise on paper, this looks like a great solution, but it doesn't do these two things because of some of the compromises they made from security. We either have to A, make an exception for that, or B, find a different solution. So
Yeah, you know, and I would like to hope, I'm probably wrong, that we as AV industry people are coming around. But as we've had this conversation, we still find people who are like, not on my dead body, will anything go on the network? And I'm going, well, then what are you installing? Is there anything that's not on the network?
Right.
Do they even make that anymore? And I think some of that comes from fear of, oh crap, now I'm going to have to pass security. Now I've got to have some responsibility. And I don't want to nail it down to that. I get there's good reasons to have disconnected rooms, etc. I don't believe in it, but I believe there are.
You can have them, just not around here.
Yes.
hey, if in remote, tiny, we just got electricity last week, Wyoming. If I can talk to all my cameras on the network, why can't anybody else?
Right. Fascinating stuff. And I think this type of project, I think, pushes the vertical, right? It really it shows like, hey, if you
but
wanna
it pushes
come
it sideways.
Well, if it's moving it anywhere, it's great. If it brings attention, and if I'm one of these manufacturers out here, like, you know what? That's interesting, and they take something from it, and it changes their posture and the way they think, it's worth it.
You know, and actually, let's go to, if you want to say, let me take our platform that we're building, and I want to tie it to security. Do you realize, because now I'm talking with everything, if I can actually get, say, information from a random security camera that there was someone jumped a parking barrier, right? That information can now trigger all these other things on campus, like alerting so-and-so and shutting down things and make.
Okay. I thought you meant jump like the Dukes of Hazzard. And so you would aim all the cameras at that to automatically stream to TikTok.
You know what?
Maybe we could probably do that.
Revenue generating.
Again, if one of our devices, we find that there is a security breach, and I can shut that entire wing of that building down and shut that switch down in an instant, right? So there are things that now I can do because our big platform is just a big old list of if-then statements. Right?
Joe's watching. He knows what you're doing.
But
he will shut.
He's replacing all building vestibules with man traps, so they're stuck in there.
But that's where we can get that, right? And then I can, at the same time, because it's also linked to digital signage, every sign switches in an instant.
Yep.
And
right?
the door locks, so you're locked in there
and
now.
you think, like UCLA, we've been one of the schools. Sadly, it's had an active shooter incident, right? So now these are important things.
It's just a reality, right? And so, how does that change your goals and your tool and how you approach like the holistic?
Well, and that's
vision
always
again?
been the frustration in that particular scenario. That it'd be great if we could do X, Y, and Z, but this doesn't talk to that, and this doesn't talk to that. And it's like,
we have
it's
72,000 VLANs. None of this stuff communicates together. Well,
or even physically separated networks if it's facilities networking versus IT networking, sort of it's a whole mess. But I think you're in a good spot. You're in a unique spot where you are reimagining the network at the same time you're reimagining all these other systems. So it's an opportunity to make it holistic and integrated. And
yeah, absolutely. I will say that part of the reason I can do this is because all our IT departments are doing something, and we're all talking to each other.
How many email servers are you guys down to? I remember that presentation. We had like 7 of them.
No, 7D.
7.
Oh, 7D. Email servers.
But
Lord.
email unification is one of the 15.
Okay, I just remember that slide where it's like, here's all the. I was like, wow, there's some challenges there.
It is a little bit better than that, but not a lot. I mean, we have taken university administration, and they were about 20% of campus, so that's a big chunk of and we were 20, so 40. So we've done some, but that only took 2 of those away. But there's a lot. Actually, I think well, 70 different networks, and I think 38 or 39 different email things.
Wow.
But that is part of it, and it will go away. But again, that's what happens when you're a university, especially going back to a research university, and everybody sets their area up as their own silo. And
the
you
most
do
important
it
in the world.
30 years ago, and it builds and does that way. And even though everyone agrees there's economies of scales, everyone agrees that we should just all
But
have.
not my economy.
Yeah, that's fine for you guys. You guys do that, and by all means, save money. But we're gonna keep our grant money over here.
But you're going to leave mine alone, right?
Yeah.
So, I get that. Having been at another institution where we went through just a primary email domain name switchover, that took years to just like for all those pieces to get hashed out, and then you'd find someone still using the alternate one, which would work but was delayed. It was a whole thing, and they'd say like, I just like that one better. It was like,
That's one of my logins don't do that. Cool.
all right, Joe. Anything else you want to share? Anything you're looking forward to here, and we'll definitely check back when this is all done. So like next week, I guess. So.
Yeah, next week, that would be wonderful. Then I could finally
Well, no, you
sleep.
said you're
I'm
al-
not used to having a job that makes me work.
Well, there's that.
I was the one. Oh, I love what I do right now. But I'll tell you, that last institution, I was paid to just travel. It was nice.
Paid to beat Joe Wade. You said that the other RFP, that's 4 more weeks on that, you said, for that one? Okay.
They're due. I don't know when this is airing, but they're due next week. End of next week.
Week. Live right now. What are you talking about?
Are we really?
Yeah.
Are we? I said the word shit show. Oh, never mind. So
We
that's
don't
happening.
edit. Well, that's not true. We have had to edit a few small times.
Yes.
Including one person who asked if we could edit something like days after it was published.
After it went live.
And I was like, that's already
That's
out.
already
That was
out.
out like 3 days ago. And they're like, oh, you can't edit that? I'm like, no.
We can, but everybody's already seen it.
Passed it. Yeah.
No, we want to check back on you as you go through that process on like as that RFP closes out. So maybe sometime later this summer, check in with you on that, and then like how that process moves forward, especially on the pilot side, and then the data you're getting out of that pilot. Well, I think will be a fascinating discussion. So
And I'll say, I'll do a teaser. There's still some more exciting manufacturer announcements that'll be made and partners we're bringing into this. So that'll be happening over the next month, and some too, as well as our patient vendors.
exclusive with Whirlpool,
There
as
you
I
go.
understand it. So.
That would be kind of cool. Hey, we can link. And by the way, this was another thing we found out when I talked to housing. Right?
Oh, there you go. There's the play.
They have smart washing machines and dryers that announce
that seems like some
students-
real discriminatory data coming out.
Right?
Now.
Like, but if you think about it,
Does FERPA apply to
if
that?
we take our platform,
They
and
probably use a
everybody has an
dashboard
app,
for it.
Yeah.
Now, can they not get a push notification telling them that their laundry is done, and now to go change it? Because when we were all in school, what happened if you didn't
Take
get
your laundry
done?
out and you throw it on the floor.
Exactly.
floor.
So
It
what
takes
if we
too
gave
long.
everyone a 5-minute warning? A bing, you're right. I'm just
5-minute
saying.
warning,
You
and then
better get
a
over
part-time
here.
student worker is going to come over and throw your laundry on the floor. So.
I'm just saying. Again, these are the crazy things. that
All
what
connected
we're doing.
now. I love it.
And you can have a camera in there streaming that to TikTok.
Yeah, it's all
you just have
digital
to
signage.
automate the washer so it automatically dumps
Ooh, I
the
like that one.
Yeah.
It's sat for more than 5 minutes.
Dump
Out
it
it
out.
goes.
Is this like one of those elder easy chairs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tips
Just
out.
tips up, dumps it. So.
Well, that's service opportunity. Some enterprising student will make a service. I will take your laundry out for you based on the data when it says it's ready.
And then throw it on the floor.
And throw it on the floor.
All right, very cool. So this has been, I was going to say live. This has been live from Northwest Met 2025.
Boise.
More to come in Boise.
Boise.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, that wraps up another episode of AV SuperFriends Perspectives. If you have a perspective to share, you can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.